This bonus sponsor episode of The Big Show is sponsored by Xsolla.
Hey everyone, it's me, Alex Lee, and I'm here for another episode of The Big Show, recorded from the Grammy Museum here in sunny LA. I'm here for the GamesBeat Hollywood and Games event that we're putting on around the Game Awards today, and it's my pleasure to introduce Berkeley Eganis, the Chief Growth Officer of Xsolla, and Jen Donahoe, who is the founder of Jade Inferno and a all-around brand building expert in gaming. So,
awesome.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So, I think just before we even get started, I want to introduce you guys a little more to the audience. Do you mind just telling a little bit about yourselves and also maybe how you guys met each other in the first place?
Sure.
You go first.
Sure. So for me, I've built and led marketing teams at all these different game companies, Riot, Scopely, Zynga, EA. I also worked for a ton of different toy and entertainment companies, leading marketing teams, Disney, Hasbro, Mattel. Then I just started a marketing consulting agency, so helping a bunch of people figure out how do I make the right game for the right audience with the right consumer kind of fit. And then finally, I didn't have a podcast host on my bingo card. I also am a host on Deconstructor of Fun, which is another podcast that serves insider game industry news.
Awesome. Berkeley.
Hi, been in marketing advertising for over 20 years. Been an agency guy in sports and entertainment for a long time. Went the route in AR, VR for a couple years. Dabbled in that business as well. And then esports. Before Xsolla, I was CMO at Ghost Gaming. I got acquired by a group out of Atlanta. And the brand is continuing on and doing a great job doing it too. And then I came over to Xsolla right as lockdown was happening. So my first day was a lockdown day.
Wow.
In LA. That was enjoyable. But we learned a lot. Like what's going into it and some of the conversations. And that's kind of how we met. Was toward the tail end of that through Deconstructor. We were a partner and sponsor of that. Some of our guys, Chris Hughes was been on a couple episodes with you guys and talking about it, but just really telling the story and the intersection of games and business and what's happening and help build that community and the following that you guys have on the podcast as well has been great to really tell that authentic story and what's going on.
Yeah, and then after that we met at the game night at GDC, which was the chance to do live events is something that it just, especially coming out of COVID and lockdowns. And I think what I loved about meeting you there was seeing this other side of the game industry, which is really trying to do it was like a no alcohol, very fun, very inclusive event that brought us together. So. That's always, I have such a great memory of us connecting.
That was such a good experience doing it. We had lines all the way down corridors, down escalators. I remember walking up and I was a little late to the first one and I go, where are you guys going? We're going to game night. And I was like, we need to order more food.
Yeah.
And it was perfect because it was no booze, snacks, OG board games and things like that was going into it. Just really getting people together to collaborate and have some fun and just take a minute and breathe. And we've run that for 2 or 3 years and we've done them in Europe now.
Yeah.
And we did it at Gamescom as well. So it was, it's been fun.
So am I hearing this right? Did you guys play a board game together at this event?
I would have kicked his ass if we did.
It would have been brutal. It would have been brutal.
We did not play Risk or any other game.
The amazing thing is seeing the big Uno cards that people were holding and putting it together and doing the draw for it and being a significant it was one to it. So it was fun.
Speaking of, Uno is actually coming into gaming in 2026, according to Mattel. So maybe they should be listening to this episode and pulling some insights. How do you build the Uno brand in gaming? I mean, legitimately, that is a huge question that I have for them. So,
well, they do have a successful mobile game right now from Mattel 163, which is good. But that is their one of their top IPs.
Yeah,
it has huge potential in gaming. So
excited to see where that goes. I digress. Before we dive into this topic of brand building, let's get into some fun topics about your background. I want to say I actually come from an esports background as well. Esports is what I started writing about at the beginning, and so I'm very familiar with Ghost Gaming. What was the most interesting activation or campaign that you worked on at Ghost, and how does that apply to this topic of brand?
For sure. I would say the Fortnite World Cup. So we were there in New York City. We're at Arthur Ashe.
This is the first one?
The first one that was in 2019. And putting it together and building the team who were qualifiers going into it. We had some alternates too as well that went to it, and really creating content and telling the story of what's going on. These players are real human beings. They have lives, and like we took them on a journey all the way through New York City. Some of them have never been to the city before, and it was an awesome, eye-opening experience to do that.
Awesome.
But to really take our brand and at that time and to elevate it and going into it and really put us on the map, per se, and go into it, and led to an acquisition of the team later on down the road. But it's taking that community and really that they related to, because we were in CS:GO, we were in PUBG, we were in Splatoon, we were in Rocket League, and we were other games as well. But really looking at what the Fortnite community was doing, and it was, you know, these battle royale season passes, but then the tournaments, the qualifiers that led up to the Fortnite World Cup, and really giving that brand to build on to, you know, leveraging another IP, a powerful IP with Fortnite Epic and what they did, and to continue that. And so it helped us, you know, you attach to it, figure out the right channels and leverage the push and pull. We tested a bunch of stuff. We broke some things, and like you go into it, but you learn from it. And that's the whole point, to get better and continue to evolve.
I missed out on I live in New York, and I missed out on going to that. And it's one of my main esports journalist regrets. I should have gone. Jen, how about you? What's a brand or a brand building project that you worked on that might be, you know, unexpected or surprising to the audience?
So I often talk about my very first job was my dream job. I got to work on the Kenner Star Wars action figure line.
Whoa.
And so I got to do a number of the brands, but the one that was super cool was Episode 1. So no one got we knew everything about Episode 1 before everyone else did. And so from a toy perspective, what people don't realize is we as Kenner got to make the toy packaging that was used across every single other consumer product. So I don't know if you remember, like, it was Darth Maul's face on this red background. So I got to work on that and be a huge part of like selecting that it was Darth Maul, selecting that it was red. We picked a hot color versus a cool color. So we actually were strategic. The hot color attracts your eye at a shelf. So reds and oranges and yellows. And we gave, at the time, Galoob did another segment of micros, like small. They were our competitor. So we gave them the cool color. We gave them blue. Nice. Very strategic. Nice. But yes, so being involved in Star Wars for 3 years and having done all that packaging was like a highlight of my life. Yeah, it's super cool.
That's
Every time we talk, I tell you another story, and you're like, what?
Because listen, I'm going to blow you up, but Jen also worked on Power Rangers, those are two properties that were foundational for me as a kid. Like I'm showing my
age.
I was like 6 years old watching, The Phantom Menace, pretending I was Darth Maul. You successfully.
We did too. At much older than you, we still did that.
But I'm just saying. I mean, congrats on picking up on the fact that Darth Maul was secretly the coolest part of the entire movie. I digress again. Okay, thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about this topic of brand building. I want to define it first, because it's a bit of a nebulous term, and it's something that fits into this wider world of marketing, but it's a specific task and a specific goal. When you say brand building in gaming, what do you mean by that? And also, is that something that's evolved, over the last few years?
Yeah, definitely. Let's just to go really quick, to break it down, especially for game folks, it's when a game transcends just being a game to becoming an identity for players, to becoming a fandom. Mm-hmm. That is the journey of building your brand. And most of the game people are like, oh, we'll get to brand later. It's really expensive. And why do we need to spend time on that? But people don't realize that in today's world, what happens is there's so many other things out there. You have to have something that a player wants to identify with. They want it to be a part of their life. They want to wear it in merch. And so in order to do that, you have to build the brand. What is the tone and the voice? What does the logo and the colors look like? And that whole process is what gets you from being just a game to creating a fandom around it.
And that's the ultimate goal, whether you're a B2C brand or B2B brand, it's like figuring out that journey and that maturation that goes into it. You make very specific decisions. A lot of them are based on data. Some of them could be based on gut and things like that, but you test it and what's going on to have longevity, to build it, because it's not just a flash in the pan. If you catch that moment, to build on that. And then building doesn't just start, post-launch. It starts from day one.
Yeah.
Day one, you're telling a story. You're creating something amazing in games. To be able to start that. Leak out some content. do social media, put it out there. You're going to get, but the other thing, not just to get it out there, but get feedback and like what's going on, what the community is thinking about. You may have to pivot based on what's going on. Because, don't listen to just one comment. Like if you get 50 that say the similar thing, like have that conversation, but you're always building and building and building and building on top of that foundation that you have and to continue to go. And then sometimes you have to pivot. Or you want to pivot because you're celebrating something or something's going on. Those are important moments and decisions that you make. They're very calculated. They're very smart. We're marketing people both, but we're also data people.
Yeah.
Like we're the biggest data nerds that are out there in most organizations. You think it's just colors and pretty pictures and motion graphics.
No, it's data inspired. We are data inspired is what I like to say.
100%. And putting it into it, there's an insight and a reason you make that decision.
So hopefully I'm not getting ahead of myself, but Berkeley, when I hear you talk about this, you're clearly talking from trained experience. I mean, this is something that you guys are in the middle of right now, and I can hear it. Tell me a little bit more about that. Xsolla is in the middle of a rebrand right now, fair to say. So I want to use that as almost like a case study for what you were just talking about. How, for example, how are you guys maintaining consistency and brand equity?
Right.
In terms of what you've already built as you make this transition?
Correct. That's a good question. So we're a 20-year-old company. So to tell a little bit of the background, we went to our CEO about a year and a half ago. And we're like, hey, we're coming into 20 years. Very common in games to have game 20, game 30, studio 40, whatever they've been, to celebrate those anniversaries. It's very common in Asia too, but we saw it all over G-Star a year ago of what's going on. We came back and we're like, let's do this. And he challenged us and he was like, no, let's rebrand the whole thing. Let's look at it in the future vision where we're going. Now we're building on our foundation and our mission statement is the same about creating longevity, opportunity for games, having a vision. And you hear us say all the time, enjoy the game. That's still resident and that's still our foundation. We're building upon it what we're doing for the future. We are all in on the future of games. We only work on games. We get asked all the time, can you help us sell merch? Can you help us sell t-shirts? Can you go do other things like that? And where we say no, because we're dedicated to the gaming industry. So we looked at it. It was like, if we're going to be forward thinking, let's look at it. We're very deliberate on the colors that we chose. We went from a magenta to we call it spark blue. And it's a light blue tone. It comes trust, openness, transparency. Those are words that we gravitated on, insights-based, talking to different groups. We worked with a great agency, Pentagram, out of London,
they're good.
to go put it together and made that happen. And now we're executing it. We launched it yesterday.
Oh, wow.
At 8 a.m., we're in LA Live. We're here. We're here at GamesBeat with some merch. Oh my God, it's awesome. Putting it into it and telling the story. The website completely refreshed over. So a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into it, but really seeing it and then seeing the feedback that comes into it being positive. People get it without you explaining it of what's going on. That's when you know you have something. And we tested, tried things we've stretched and pulled against it. And we're gonna continue to evolve. And it's not this week and we're done. And we can go take a nap. It's continuing to iterate. It's continuing to tell the story. You're going to see different things from us in Pocket Gamer London. You're going to see at GDC. It's going to be different. Gamescom. It's going to evolve in the story that we do. And then as we expand from our product set and what's going on, not only from web shops and payments, but what is next? What's the future iteration? What does Web3 look like? What is, digital items in that digital economy going? That's what we're building for. And it was very intentional. We did it now. The last time we did it was 2019. That's when the magenta and that people are used to seeing. But now it's the big square text and like balancing that and putting it together. Now this all works nicely together. So more to come from us. See us outside if you're here. Check us out at LA Live. We'll be at the Game Awards too as well.
Shoot me down on this, but is part of this like a sort of like a coming out party in a way? Because when I think about Xsolla, you guys have been around for 20 years and people who are on the developer side know you for sure, but you're a white label product. Almost by definition, you don't want yourself or Xsolla to be seen necessarily on the front side for the clients that you integrate with. So what's the role and the importance of a rebrand for you in this moment as you look to maybe become a little more front facing as a company?
Well, it's about storytelling and engaging with the B2B partners, the game studios, the publishers, the developers that we work with, ensuring confidence that we're building for the future, what's going on, we're right there with them. We're only successful because of our partnerships that we have with the developers in the gaming community. The growth that we have is because of the games. And we're humbly being able to support them as kind of this undercurrent, and it all starts with just a little ripple in the water, and you see the waves that start happening. That's what we believe in the vision, and help elevate the games. And if we're helping elevate the games, then we're doing our job. And that's our vision. We go into it. You don't see a lot of us in B2C. We do some integrations with creators and influencers and those activation points that go into it in certain places. We've been at TwitchCon, and we do that and engage from the creator side of the house. But it was very intentional to do it now, because we really believe in what we've seen over the last couple of years, and the trajectory that the game industry is going up and up and up, despite what some reports might be writing about, because they only write about a microcosm of the industry, but looking at the whole, the growth that's happening and the evolution. We're at a point of evolution in games, and where it's going, what's the next frontier? Digital items, digital economies, really putting it into it. It kind of, a lot of people will be like, duh, because it's a digital experience, whether it's a console or PC or mobile game, but really looking at that digital economy and what the users, what the players are wanting.
So, Jen, I want to turn this to you and ask, you have a really deep and wealthy experience in brand building. Are there any examples of projects that you've worked on where you had to help shepherd a brand through a transition from one platform to another, one medium to another, or simply through changes in, consumer user behavior?
The one that comes to mind all the time that I love talking about is Teamfight Tactics, or TFT. So I spent quite a few years at Riot, first on helping on Wild Rift for building that brand from the start, and then I was growth on League of Legends. And so for Teamfight Tactics, when we decided we were going to take TFT from PC to mobile, I raised my hand and said, I want to be the one to do Riot's first ever mobile game. And so the thing that happened in creating TFT, I don't know if you remember playing like Auto Chess. So we, as Riot, built TFT for PC in probably 5 months. And so the brand was very, very rushed. The logo, there was only one piece of key art, like very, very little, and it was designed just for PC. So when we needed to take it to mobile, we were looking at the logo and it had all these designs in it. And the first thing, because I came from Scopely most recently, I'm like, this logo is never going to be readable on a mobile phone. And so we decided to do a complete rebrand at that moment. And what we did, though, is we thought about it from platform first. Like, hey, what makes sense? How do you carry forward the identity from all of the different characters? Who's our mascot? Because because TFT changes its characters and its skins, so we needed a mascot. So we picked Pengu, which is the penguin, who has now become the mascot of the entire. So anyone that sees the icon, in fact, the icon didn't change for years and years after. So when we did the rebrand, what we thought about was, how do we make a modular style guide toolkit that will last us for years and years? And so I'm super proud to say that 6 years later, they are still using the exact same style guide, the same logo, the same lockup. So mission accomplished from my standpoint. And this is where, when I tell people, when you go and you spend money, you can spend a lot of money on branding. You can also spend a little bit of money. But if you think about that right from the beginning and you create a modular style guide, you can take all the parts and pieces, move them around. You end up saving time and money, alignment with the entire team, because everyone knows what they need to do. So that project means a lot. We were the first mobile game to launch. Ironically, we launched during lockdown, the first week of lockdown in March of 2020. We were all, Riot's a very collaborative environment where we had a Google Meet open for 24 hours a day for 7 days a week during launch week to make sure it didn't fall over, because TFT was the first game. It's tied into League of Legends, like from a tech perspective. And so super, super proud of that. We launched to #1 in all of apps in Korea and like 4 other countries. Yeah, it means a lot.
Wow. Do you think that there are, no pressure, but are there takeaways from your experience building TFT that might apply to a brand?
Oh, absolutely.
Because Xsolla, TFT is a gaming brand. Xsolla, you provide a service within gaming as well. So yeah, curious what the takeaways might be for their approach.
It's all in the architecture.
Right.
So if it's B2B or if it's B2C in what I do. And that's why I work, today I work with clients that are B2B. I work on B2B projects and I work on B2C projects at the exact same time, because a good marketer has the same framework and template of how you do things. It's just what goes into the art is what's different. Like the approach is the same. And so that's why, you've been able to kind of switch sides, and I can do both sides. I mean, I actually, it's part of like what I do, in my consultancy or on the podcast, is sometimes I'm like, wow, I have to be a B2B person today. I don't know how to do that. I've only ever been client side. So sometimes I'll call Berkeley and be like, all right, how do I do this? How do I do an event? How does it, so all of the thing, but the structure is the same. So I don't think everything he talked about, I was like, yep, consumer insights. Yeah. I mean, it's the same process. And I think the thing that we try to do is educate everyone else, because everyone else just shits on marketing. Oh, those, they'll get to it later. They'll do it later. If truly we can be a partner at the beginning of the process that just pays dividends. And again, the costs come down, the speed is better. Everyone has exactly what is in mind for the product to come to life, again, to create the fandom ultimately that everybody wants.
Right.
And if having a seat at the table, and what I loved about my time at Riot or Scopely or EA is, luckily, I always got a seat at that table, because as a marketer, my number one recommendation to them is to play the game, is to live in the fandom and to live in the culture of the game team and of your fans, because then you'll be invited to sit. You don't have to ask to sit. And that's really the difference in getting everything across.
Interesting. Sorry, Berkeley, did you have anything to add?
It's interesting. And the foundational elements, to your point, B2B to B2C, it's about creating that toolkit and the foundation of what you're doing. And you go build the tools, and we call them tools, but there's assets, there's packs, there's messaging, there's things that you do, there's collaboration that you do with influencers, for athletes, for talent, for personalities, and content to create that experience. And we worked with worked with some great athletes from around the world. We were the ones that twisted and went into the USOC and said, hey, don't put the Golden Girls on Wheaties, put them on cornflakes. And we pulled that off. And like, you take big bets, you make challenges, what's going on, like at events that we do at GDC, we went off campus for a minute, like to figure some things out, make it more a collaborative environment, and it's working. And that's what we're seeing. And you're going to see more of that from us. And so you build on that toolkit. Yeah. So you take those big swings that we've taken at Xsolla to go into it. You're going to double down on what works, cut what doesn't. You don't be afraid to fail. I think that's one piece of advice. Everybody's like, you have to be perfect when going into it. Yes, that is a dream and an aspiration when you go. But when you fail, pull back that investment, go do something else, pivot, and then you'll see something else. So when you have that flash in the pan moment because you made a big bet, double down. And then you'll be more successful as you go into it. And 6 years later, it's still out there.
It's still the structure. In fact, one of the things that we were going to talk about was like, what is brands in the future? And the thing that I'm working with this small game company, they're called Animal Company. It's the #1 VR game. And the team built a style guide on Figma, and it's public. Anyone can go to the Figma and get any of the assets, the logos, the toolkit, the video. And the reason that they do that is because of the new world of influencers is organic marketing. And so because they are doing, in a sense, a public style guide, like you and I would be like, the first time I saw it, I'm like, legal, trademarks, stress. And then I was like, okay, let me just think. Gen Alpha doesn't care about that. I mean, Disney today just let they licensed their IP to Sora. Yeah. Now it's going to be in the hands. Yes. I mean, and I worked at Disney for 6 years. I mean, kudos to them to have the guts to be able to do that. But what they recognize is if you give, this is why Roblox is so successful. This is why the Fortnite licensing platform is so successful. If you can give enough like little guardrails, but put it in the hands of players in the right way and give them the tools to do that, magic is going to come for that. And so I think that's kind of brand style guide building, 2.0, or actually it's today, but where we as the OGs need to get comfortable is developing toolkits that can be public, that can be usable to allow your audience to, in a sense, show you what else you can do that you never thought of.
That's okay. I mean, let's talk a little bit more about how creators are becoming part of this process, because that's such an interesting, and I think I just want to mine that seam a little bit more. are there ways creators are like the tastemakers of digital society in a lot of ways? Should they be consulted for branding and like the actual brand building and rebrands that companies are doing as well? Where should creators be brought into that part of the process?
Yeah.
I think it's very important in that process because a lot of times you pitch your idea to your friends and family. Let's be honest, we love them, but they're not totally honest. They're gonna be like, everything's great.
Mhm.
Keep going. Like,
Yeah.
I want you to pull this, stretch it, and like what's going on. They'll give you feedback from the community because they're right there in the world of the community and who you're working with. And and take those relationships very, very, very seriously. And what's going on, particularly as you're trying something new. What do you think about this and what's going on? We've done that with some of the promotions that we've done for some of the games to help them out going into it. And they'll be like, that's great. Give me that. Give me my referral code, do the normal. But then other times they're like, like, really? You want me to do this? Like, this is not the good time of year, or this is not it's a weird cycle that we're in that we need to like try something else. But then they'll give you a recommendation on what to do.
But yes, however, so we have things called echo chambers. We have things called the vocal minority. So on most of the brands that I work on, in many cases, I manage the VIP group. So when I was on WWE Champions, I actually created and managed the group of people so I would take their feedback. But I would also say this is a two-way street. It's going to go both ways. You have to still get outside of the vocal minority. Because remember, these are your super fans. They're highly engaged. Some of them, and I would make sure to get the high spenders plus the high players who didn't necessarily, so I would get multiple voices. You have to still do consumer insights to the general audience so that you are not getting a skewed representation of the feedback. So while, yes, you should absolutely reach out to creators and take the feedback, you make sure you listen to everybody, and then I get the sifting pan out, you distill it, and then that way you segment, in a sense, your audience and make sure that you have the right things. In many cases, like on Wild Rift, when I was working on that in the very, very early days, we had segments of, okay, how is this brand going to be in China? How is this brand going to be for people who just watched Arcane and want to come in and have never, ever seen League of Legends before? And what is a League of Legends fan going to think about the first time they can play League of Legends on mobile? How do you think about all of those different things? And how do you create a brand and a voice to please each one of those very different consumer audiences?
So, Berkeley, I want to go back a little bit to earlier you mentioned that marketers, brands should not be afraid of not doing what doesn't work, essentially. Let's talk about what doesn't work. We spent a good amount of time talking about all the great strategies and good things that you guys have done and that you've seen succeed in this space. But what are some example of common mistakes that you see in brand building?
Oh, it's time to shit on stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were talking about being positive in podcasts, and now you're asking us to pull out the negative.
Well, we can be pragmatic here. You don't need to name anyone in particular either.
There are some that are very iconic. And when you have something that is iconic, don't screw with it a lot of times. And like what's going on. You've seen some brand mistakes that have happened on cars.
Jaguar?
Just to name one.
Yep.
Perhaps.
Perfectly said, because they were like, oh, we're going with the new model. What's going on? No, you have a generational brand that has value, emotion, feeling into it. You don't mess with it. Now, you evolve the storytelling of what's going on, but the physical Jaguar needed to stay on the car.
Yeah,
like
absolutely. Yeah.
You don't know what the car was, like, because it wasn't there. Like, things like that have gone on. Now, you see other people, like a MasterCard, they got rid of the word MasterCard on their logo. It's not just the two circles and, like, what's going on. And it was a subtle change and thing that was going on, very deliberate and going on, because it was going to go cross-platform and different initiatives and things that they're going to do. Made a ton of sense. American Express, Amex, two different brands. And you think about it, American Express is the overarching what's going on. But if you look on your app, on your phone, it's going to be Amex from that communication. So you look at what's going on and don't be forceful. And a lot of people are like, no, we're going to jam this down.
Yeah.
I'm right. You're wrong. What's going on? We've seen CEOs get fired, terminate, like, because it was brand harm or what's going on. And it was the wrong call.
I think for me, one brand that struggled in many ways was Concord, in that, and what's funny is now you see our creators like rocking the same thing in a sense Concord was a little bit trying to do, of that retro sci-fi look to it. It just, because it was like Concord was like Guardian of the Galaxies kind of retro kind of thing, so that wasn't working as well. But the thing that I would think about, that my TFT analogy is, what a lot of people don't do is look at their app icon on the phone itself. Yep. They don't think about how their logo will go next to somebody else's logo, or, with a streamer, right. Or is it... So my favorite mistake was when Apple did Liquid Glass and on their YouTube video, because the play button where it came up, it blocked it, and so it said Liquid Ass on the thumbnail.
Whoops.
Right.
Whoopsies.
So these are some of the brand things that people don't think about, that you really have to have in your like checklist of things to check into. So hopefully that's
no, super interesting. I need to find that YouTube video now. That's
they took
amazing.
It down.
It's a good laugh. Somebody's got it.
I think
they needed to lean into it.
I have a screenshot of it. So yeah.
Now I actually want to see marketing that incorporates the play button. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's the next level. But anyway.
Yeah, next level is making fun of things. Yes, right. Yeah, I love it.
So the last thing I wanted to touch on here is the different needs and desires of different sized companies, and especially game studios, as they approach this brand building question. So maybe, question for both of you guys. What is like the bare minimum that a studio should invest in terms, or any gaming company should invest in terms of brand building, whether they're large or small?
Yeah, I think the thing to think about first is, we call them kind of like feature benefits and functional benefits. And so it's that early sitting down with the game team to understand, or, the business side or in the B2B of like, okay, what are our product features? How do we do our unique selling points? How do we understand what is our tone in our voice? If your brand was a person, who would it most act like? And then it's, your colors and your logo and all of your core identity. So there's a strategy element that you need to lock in, and an identity element. You can actually create your own identity now using Google's Pompelli. Mm-hmm. Have you seen this new like AI service, or even see Pompelli? So you can put in your website and it'll spit out for you a complete brand kit. Even in Google Nano Banana, you can put in and you can make a brand from scratch. My tone and my voice. That's why this like strategy work, you can now use AI to actually. Now, I wouldn't recommend that if you're an indie, go for it. Obviously if you're, working, like I wouldn't have done that at Riot, right? As an example. But I think what it helps you do is start to visualize. If you're a marketer, I like to say that I have no artistic ability, but I can speak words to an art or an art director to have that come to life. So now if I can speak that into AI, then that's super helpful.
Creating something that's going to help you tell a story, doesn't matter how big or small you are. I mean, we look at pitches all the time from our funding support side of the business and our accelerator programs we have, and we get the presentations. And we're like, what's the brand? The story, but we have the game. I'm like, hold on, back up a second. What's the story you have, and what's the brand dialogue that you're going to have? And is this going to be built for longevity? Doing those conversations. And then that replicates too from a big AAA studio that might have IP forever. I mean, we all thought Spider-Man was going to bomb a couple of years ago, and it killed from a game perspective. And like, look at iconic IP, been Spider-Man games before, but it was a perfect opportunity. We needed that type of game, the visual effects and everything that were going on. And some of the tools that are available now, it speeds up that process. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're an iconic brand, run it through the AI tools, run it through Nano Banana, Gemini, and all those things. Well, Google can pay us later. It was going on, but they just did a whole conference down the street this whole week on Tuesday, and like demonstrating like what was going on and what the future opportunities are for Hollywood and games and what's going into. Use those tools, make the smart decisions, make your adjustments of what's going on. If you're a smaller studio, take advantage of AI. Take advantage of those things that we're going into, because it'll speed you up and it'll help you down that journey, because you don't have a ton of time and money. What's going on as an indie studio, or if particularly it's your first game that you're launching. Maybe the second or third, you got a little bit more time, you've got more experience under your belt. What's going on? We've seen a lot of students here too, as well.
A lot,
and some of the, like what they're doing out of the local colleges and the campuses, and do that. They're using these tools to get them faster to creation, faster to storyboarding, faster to producing a game, and then to be able to do the marketing, because they're not marketers. They're developers, they're coders, they're creators.
Yeah.
But to be able to help tell that story.
But the minimum would be the assets that you need to launch on any of the core stores that you're working with, or to do core kind of influencer marketing or user acquisition. And so typically you can look up like, hey, what's a minimum viable style guide with a modular toolkit?
It'll pop out.
Parts and pieces you can move around. That's the basic. Like if you wanted to like put it in a package.
Awesome. Well, Berkeley, Jen, thank you for a really interesting conversation about brand building. And I feel like I could continue to mine you guys for like fun anecdotes and insights.
We would go back and forth for hours.
Yeah.
Here,
Go Power Rangers, my friend. We didn't even get to talk about that.
Oh, well, let's leave the audience wanting more. So yeah, I'll wrap us there. Thank you guys again. Seriously.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Alex, thank you.